we're going to carry out the creation of the application. I have selected once again the .NET Maui template and we're going to name the project Perfect Pay. Once the project has been created, let's perform some common actions such as indicating that we want the page called main page as the main page. I'm going to go to the main page code and I'm going to remove the event handler from the button that is created by default. I am also going to remove this scroll view, that is to say, I'm going to leave blank the content page content. As we saw in a previous video, I will proceed to define the resources of the content page. I'm going to define 3 specific colors for this page. Remember that we have to specify an X key. I'm going to call the first color Sections Color. I'm going to set it to a color that is what you can see on the screen. I'm going to copy and paste this line, and I'm going to replace each of the values with what you're seeing on the screen. I'm also going to change the X key for each of the colors. The second color is going to be light font, and the third is going to be dark font. For this specific case of the application, I'm going to proceed to change the background color of the content page, and I'm going to assign a color 323232, which is gray cheese color that we see on the screen. I'm going to proceed to start the execution of the application so that we can see these changes that we are applying. Once the application has been deployed, we see that we already have this dark gray background as part of the background of our application. The next step is to choose which layout we are going to use for the application. Again, as with the application we created in the last section, all the content of the application must fit on a single screen. Therefore, there is no need to use a stack layout. For example, with a grid, we can divide each of the sections of the application page, and what we are going to focus on in this video is to create this first section that we are seeing at the top. So let's proceed to declare a grid that is the main layout of the page. In this grid, let's proceed to create a couple of rows. The first row containing the content at the top, and the second row containing the content at the bottom. Let's go back to the SAML file and indicate that we want to define a grid element. Let's indicate that we want the margin equal to 15 for the contents of the grid, and then we will proceed to define a set of different rows through row definitions. We're going to declare a first row definition with a height equal to .3 *, which remember is 30% of the total grid. The second row is going to have the remaining 70%. The next step is to set the section of the content that we're going to position at the top of the page, and for this I will proceed to declare a frame. We're going to place a padding equal to 10. Let's specify a background color and use a static resource equal to sections color. I'm also going to indicate that we want a border color equal to transparent, and once we've done that, let's see what the application looks like. We can already see this section at the top where we are going to be able to place content. The next step is to define the visual structure of the top. We must define what kind of layout we need for these 3 elements that we are seeing on the screen. The conclusion I have come to is that we need 3 sections. This would be a first section, we also need a second section, and we need a third section. We also see a label element that should occupy all the available space of the 3 sections. If you remember the lesson about layouts, a layout that could serve us for this purpose is a grid layout. Therefore, it is the layout that we will define inside the frame element. Let's add the grid layout to the page. Let's indicate that we need a set of columns. Let's proceed to define a first column definition. I'm going to copy this definition twice more. To the second column, I'm going to indicate that I want to assign a width of 1. And this is because in this column I want to position a box view, which is going to be the line that we saw in the image, this intermediate line. I want it to take up as little space as possible, and that's why I'm defining a column with a size equal to 1. Also, as part of the grid, I'm going to indicate that I want a set of row definitions. I'm going to proceed to indicate that I want a first row definition with a height equal to .1 star. I am going to copy and paste the row definition once again, and to the second row definition I'm going to indicate that I want to assign the remaining space, that is 90%. I have done it this way because in the first row definition I want to place the label control that we see in the upper part, while in the lower part I want to place the rest of the information. Let's proceed to define first the label control at the top. We're going to indicate that we want it to occupy the maximum of available columns, that is to say 3 columns. Let's set font attributes equal to bold, horizontal text alignment equal to center, and we're going to place a text that says total per person. Finally, let's indicate that the text color is going to be equal to static resource dark font. Let's close this tag. And if we visualize the changes, we already have the message at the top of the frame. Let's define the left section of the grid, and for it, let's start defining a label control. Let's give it a name that we are going to use later and that is equal to LVL total. Let's indicate that we want to position this label in row number 1. Let's assign its font attributes equal to bold. Let's indicate a font size equal to 35, horizontal text alignment equal to center, and let's place a text equal to $0. Let's place a text color equal to static resource, and let's use the color light font. Finally, let's set vertical options equal to center and expand. Let's close this tag, save the changes, and now we can see on the left side this label that will tell us what is the total amount to be paid by each person. Let's proceed to create the intermediate line, and for this, after the label element, we will indicate that we want to use a box view. We will indicate that we want to position the box view in row number 1 and in column number 1 as well. Subsequently, we will indicate that we want a margin equal to 0,10,0,0. We indicate the vertical options equal to center and use a color AV, which we have not defined at the top, but that gives a slightly lighter shade to the box view. Save the changes, and now we can see the line that will separate the total that each person has to pay with the description of the account to reach this result. Now we must create these elements that we see on the right side, and as you can see, it is a stack layout that has a vertical orientation. Therefore, let's proceed to create a vertical stack layout. Let's indicate some properties of this vertical stack layout, like, for example, we want to position the vertical stack layout in row number 1 and column number 2. Let's also indicate that we want horizontal options equal to center, and finally its vertical options equal to center all the content of the vertical stack layout. As part of the elements of the vertical stack layout, we're going to start defining a label control that has in the text subtotal. And we're going to indicate a text color equal to static resource light font. Let's create a second label element. Let's assign it a name that we're going to use later that is equal to LVL subtotal. Let's specify some additional properties like font attributes equal to bold. Let's specify text equal to $0 and also text color equal to static resource equal to light font again. If we save the changes right now, we already have the first pair of elements that we're going to use to fill information. Let's do the same with the missing elements. Let's define a label control, set margin equal to 0,10,0,0. We will indicate that its text is equal to tip, the text color equal to static resource, light font. We close this label, and finally, we're going to declare a control type label. In fact, it's very similar to the one we have at the top, so I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to rename it to LVL tip by person. Let's specify its font attributes equal to bold. Let's specify text equal to $0 and text color equal to light font. We're going to save once again the changes and we visualize them. And in this way we have created the top that looks pretty good. In the next video, we will take care of creating all the elements to enter information at the bottom of the page.